Okay, so how y'all feeling? It has been an interesting week, yes. And I know that through the journey of this week that there's a lot of things that have been going on inside of us. And first of all, I want to say it's okay. It's okay that you feel what you feel. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And I love how the universe works. We're always so supported, and it to me in a very real way, things go out before us. And we did this series. Why we did it at this particular time wasn't our human minds. I mean, it was our human minds, but there was something more to this. And that today, last week we talked about compassion, and today we're talking about community. And there's no mistake that this has been somehow divinely orchestrated. And even the songs that John chose were chosen before the election on Tuesday. So God's in charge here. God's in charge. And that's one thing that I can tell you for sure. God's in charge. So we are in the midst of a series called Thy Will Be Done. And this series is about merging our higher self with our human self and really anchoring into our spiritual beingness, really remembering who and what we truly are. Because you know what? You're spiritual. You cannot be anything but spiritual because you are. I mean, you can't be any more or any less because you are spirit. But we really want to bring that into fuller expression in our human experience. And so we talked about ways to really move into that. And we talked about communion and connection and compassion. Today we're talking about community, and next week we're talking about challenge. And so the first place to go, you guys, it's our first principle is always to go to God, communion. And sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? Especially when things feel kind of, whoa. It's hard to focus. It's hard to go back to that center. And yet that's the very place that we must go first, because anything else that we do in life, it must come from this centered place. It must come from here. And so it may be that we're going to sit in that place and we're going to be saying over and over again, be still and know, be still and know, be still and know, be still and know. And even if in those times you're like, be still and know, it's okay. But the idea is that however long it takes, that we breathe and we breathe and we remember that the presence of God, the presence of love is right where we are, and it's everywhere present. And so communion is the most important part. And then we move to connection. And what we talked about this is how important it is to be in community with each other, with spiritually like-minded people. It's really nice to come together in this way today, isn't it? Absolutely. And it's nice to be able to talk to like-minded people about what's going on and being able to be in that place where you can share whatever it is you're feeling, but at the same time being in a place where we can remind each other of that greater truth, that greater realm. And so being able to come together in community on Sundays is just vital to merging our spiritual self with our human self. And then we talked about compassion. And this is one that is needed so much right now. Because the reality, my friends, is that people are hurting. And people are afraid. People are angry. People are stunned. And sometimes in the spiritual world, in our spiritual circles, we want to put a spiritual Band-Aid on that and say, it's all good. So it's okay. And it is. I mean, ultimately, it does work together for the greater good. I'm not saying that. I'm grateful people are there that can hold that space. The thing is that compassion says, I see that you are suffering, and I want to help to alleviate that suffering. And compassion says that when I see that in you, I'm going to be there for you. And here's the thing for me is that when my husband died very unexpectedly, I immediately went into shock. And that's what a lot of people were feeling this week, shock. And then I went into intense grief. And I'm going to tell you, there was not a single person that said to me, you shouldn't be feeling that way. you need to get over it. It's been a couple months now. You need to go. Not one person, because they honored the process. And what I want to say to all of you here today who are hurting, for any of you here today who are fearful, which is valid considering some of the things that have been going on, that it's okay that you're feeling those things. And I'm not going to tell you not to feel those things. What I'm going to hopefully help to do is to remind you that God is right where you are, and that you have a community of people here who are here for you. You have a community of people here who we're willing to listen. We're willing to hold you. We're willing to stand with you and stand by you and stand for you. We're here for each other, yes? Yeah, and would we all agree that we are here truly for especially those who are really hurting or in fear? Yes? Absolutely, absolutely. So compassion, so needed right now. And not just in our spiritual community, but in our community and the world as a whole. Compassion is what is needed right now. And so today we're going to talk about community. And we're going to talk about community as we talk about our master, Jesus, this beautiful master teacher, Jesus Christ. And so the story I'm going to share with you happened a little over 2,000 years ago, and the disciples and Jesus are going into town, and there's, the town is celebrating. They're celebrating how far, that the disciples have come, how far they've grown, and there's this wonderful feast that has been prepared, and they go upstairs to this upper room to have this feast. And so you can imagine the display of food and how delicious it was, and probably how everything was displayed, how the table was laid out. And there's wine, and so they're eating and they're drinking and they're happy and they're talking, and there's merriment, and they get to the end of their meal, and their host stands up and he goes and he says, "Now I'm going to wash your feet." Now you can imagine if you were sitting there after this, you'd be like, "What?" And he says, "I'm going to wash your feet." And they're still like, "What? Did you hear him? He wants to wash our feet, And he's like, "I'm going to wash your feet." And then they're like, "God, he's serious." And they're saying, "Oh, wait, hold on now. We've been walking in these sandals for a really long time. Our feet are really bad. We don't really want you to get down there and wash our feet." And he says, "I'm going to wash your feet." And so he gets down and he washes the first disciples' feet. Now, can you imagine how it went from this happy merriment to just stone cold silence? As it's like, whoa, what is going on here? And he takes the time and he washes each of the disciples' feet. And then he looks at them and he says, "Do you understand what I have just done to you? Do you get what this means?" And he said, "You call me your Lord and teacher, and that is right. And if I, as your Lord and teacher, will wash your feet, then you too shall wash each other's feet." And he said, "For I have set you an example that you should also do as I have done unto you." And so what Jesus did here is that he demonstrated for them what it means to love one another and to take that love beyond just themselves and start moving it out in a bigger way. Now, he says to them, remember, and this is in John 13:34-35, he says, "Let me give you a new command. Love one another. In the same way I have loved you, you love one another. This is how everyone will recognize that you are my disciples, when they see the love that you have for each other." And he's saying by this everyone will know that you are my disciples, that you love one another as I have loved you. And so the way to be a disciple is to love one another. Yes? That's how we are disciples. And it's and I love this because Mindy says it's no dunking in the river, no creeds, no membership classes, no proclamation. You are my disciples as you go out into the world And it's by this that people will know. So now they're being prepared for something greater. And so we move forward, the crucifixion and the resurrection, the ascension, and then they see Jesus in his most heightened state. And they're reunited with him now, and they're so happy about this. And he says to them in Matthew, he says, now go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And remember that, lo, I am with you always. And he wasn't talking here about baptizing them by dunking them in the river. It's like baptizing them in the sense of helping them to know, to remember. Jesus' life was a pure example of love and of oneness, of connection, of possibility, of hope, of power. And he empowered his disciples to really get it from a deeper level where they now too can go out and they can do the things that he has done and even more. And he's saying to them now, it's your turn for you to go out and for you to show people what I have shown you. For you to love people as I have loved you. Not just the people it's easy to love, not just people it's easy to love, but to love one another as I have loved you. And to empower people and to let them know that they can do even greater things than I have done. And that, lo, I am with them always. I am with them always. And you know what this is? For us, it's a call to have God beyond these walls, God beyond church, God beyond our homes, God beyond the grocery stores, God beyond the parking lots. It's taking God out and taking God strongly into the community. And I love, because to be a disciple is to follow. And I will always be a disciple because I will always be striving to follow the teachings. But the next step, my friends, is disciple to apostle. And an apostle is one that is being sent forth. And so today we are called to be apostles. And we are called to go forth. And we are called to not just talk about it. You guys, we have to start being it. In a bigger way than we have ever been in our lives. We are called to be it, to step out of our comfort zones, to step into uncomfortableness, and to show up as that love that Jesus showed, that Jesus shared, that Jesus exemplified. And we are to be that now in everything, with everyone. Even with people we don't agree with. Oh my goodness. And I think that's probably the even more important aspect of this. You know, I was thinking about, just everything that's been on Facebook and everything, this just been being said, and just how I know I can post something and it's from my heart and I intend it for only good. But somebody with a lens that is seen differently can look at that. Actually, somebody shared with me that somebody that they knew said that it's sad that they see that I'm posting hate things. And I'm like, and I got it, though, because we all see with these lenses. And I really want us to really stop and recognize, what lens am I looking through? Am I looking through a limited lens? Am I, when I'm hearing about things or when I'm seeing things going on, am I judging them harshly, or am I sending out love? Am I trying to see things from a different viewpoint? Because that's a big part of this too, isn't it? Being willing to see things from a different viewpoint and coming together as a people in a different way than we've ever come together before. And it's so important for us to do this. Again, as I was looking through all of the Facebook posts, as I've been talking to people, my heart has this week. I mean, I'm going to be the first one to say that I was in grief and sadness and a little bit of fear and part of what I've seen are, these posts about, this side and this side. And and to me, creating more of a division than ever before. And it's not about sides, you guys. It's not about that. And I recognize too that there's been a lot of hate things spewed from both avenues, from both aspects of things, and a group of people that are being looked at as all racist and sexist and homophobic because of the candidate that they voted for. And I'm going to tell you, I know a lot of people who voted for that candidate that are good, wonderful people that have none of that in them. None of it. So it's not something that is, it's not half of the population who voted, they aren't those people. They saw something in that candidate that they believed in. But they're not those people who we want to put in a one bowl and say, all of you are this way. That's not true. Now, there are a lot of them, and it's just people in general, right? I mean, we've seen it, and that's the one thing that we're seeing coming up a lot right now is a lot of the hate, a lot of the bullying, a lot of the awful things that are going on. I know even here, in our Springfield community, and I know specifically at a college locally where hate is, terrible things are being said to students and, people of color and LGBT people, and of course, people of different ethnic backgrounds. And it's very sad because it's almost as if people who have that hate in them have been encouraged, in a sense, to stand up and have that come forward. But here's what I'm going to tell you, is that when I look at this, and I can step back and look at it, I recognize that, in a sense, all of this has to happen. Because all of this has to come out so we can take a look at it. And so those of us who are here, I'm sure, can look and say, no more. I am not going to be quiet. I am not going to step back. I'm going to be love. But I'm going to tell you, love can be loud. And love can be strong. And love can stand solidly with somebody and push somebody else away that is not expressing love to this person that I'm standing here with. So love isn't just a quiet, passive thing, you guys. Love is strong. Love stands for, and love stands with. And I know that that's going to be a big stepping out of my comfort zone, but I'm going to do it. And I hope that you're going to do it. And I think that most of the people in this country are going to stand up and say, no more. Because we're no longer willing to stand for inequality in any way, for dehumanizing people in any way. But what we're going to stand for is we're going to stand for each other as human beings who have the same rights to have the best life that they can possibly have, to live in a way in which they feel safe. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. That's what we are called to now. And we are being called in a big way. And I love the story of the starfish on the beach, and there's thousands of starfish, and this one guy is out there and he's just throwing one at a time in, and somebody else comes up and they said, what are you doing? Well, I'm saving the starfish. And the guy looks and he's like, you can't possibly save all of them. And as he's throwing it, he said, but I can save this one. I can make a difference for this one. I can make a difference for this one. And that's where we have to be right now, because sometimes it can look so big, can't it? And I think a big part of that is how big our media is, and how, and sensationalism. And so what do we see? Most of the time we see all of the bad things that are happening. There's so much good that is happening out there. There's so much good. And we have to stand up and call for more of that good to be shown on our media, rather than giving it the attention that we don't need to be giving it. And then we start right here, one person at a time. One person at a time. First of all, here in our spiritual community. Now, there's a beautiful little program that's going on right now that I absolutely love. And it's about the safety pin. If you got a safety pin on the way in, and if you didn't, we have safety pins for you today. The safety pin is not a political statement, but rather it is solidarity for those who are being discriminated against. The idea is that when you wear a safety pin, that you are saying, I'm a safe place. I am somebody that you can trust. And if you are in fear in any way, you can come to me. But you know something? We're being called even higher than that now. Because if we see somebody who we know is being discriminated against, and something physical isn't happening, 911, if something physical is happening, but we make the choice to go to them. And I love, because I saw this on Facebook and I thought this was so great. Don't give the bully any attention. But you're going to go to that person and you're going to look them in the eyes and you're going to start talking to them and you're going to keep your focus on them so they can keep their focus on you. And you're going to just start talking about things that can just keep you, whatever comes to mind. And you keep that person focused on you, and eventually this person has to go away because they're not getting what they want to get. But it's those kinds of things. You go up to somebody. How many times do we just say, how you doing today? Good. And we go off. But sometimes, you guys, and especially now, I think sometimes we have to say, how you really doing? What's going on for you today? How you really doing? And I'm going to be here with you. And I'm going to let you share with me whatever it is you need to share with me. And I'm going to remind you that I'm here. That you have a community of people that is here. And that you are loved. And that God is right here. We are being called to such a higher way of being. And every single one of us in this room, every person who listens to this message in any way, one thing I want to tell you, you've got what it takes. You're strong. And you are stronger than you even begin to imagine that you're strong. Because the power that was in Christ Jesus is in you. That's the power of the Christ that we are. And we have the ability to go out and to change the world. It's we, the people, that are going to change the world, right? Yes. And it's not as much standing against as much as standing for. We're going to stand for each other. We're going to stand for human rights. We're going to stand for equality. We're going to stand for love. That's what we're going to stand for. But it takes every one of us to do that. Now, as far as community outreach, you know, we hear a lot. We want this church to get out in the community and to do some great community outreach projects, and we want that. Yes. Yes. And so we had a meeting, and we had 4 people show up at the meeting, and that's not going to do it. So I want to tell you one thing that we're going to do. This is not getting our feet out the door yet, but one of the things that we're going to do, and we're starting now, is we're going to be collecting, and this is why this is up here. We're going to be collecting socks and scarves and gloves and hats and coats for Rare Breed. Now, Rare Breed is an organization that is there for homeless teens up to the age of 24. And this is one way that we can be in the community. I don't know about you. How many of you have more coats than you need? Hello. Great opportunity. We do ask that you, I saw that back there, Pat, raising Kimberly's hand. She does. We do ask that with coats that hats, scarves, and gloves, that they're like new, that they're in good condition and clean. We do ask that socks are brand new. And you know the number one thing that homeless people ask for? Socks. Isn't that interesting? It's a great way for us to get out into the community. But here's the thing, you guys. We got to get these legs and these arms outside of these walls. And it's going to take you. And it's going to take those of you, I asked on Facebook, what are some of the community outreach projects that you're passionate about? And some of them were Harmony House, Hope Connection, Great Circle, I Pour Life, CASA, Nightlight Branson, Hospice Compassion Care, Open M, Gathering Friends, St. Jude's, Building Bridges, Heifer Ranch, the Dream Center. And so I know that for many of you, there's some wonderful organizations out there that you have a real heart and a passion for. And so even though I'm talking about challenge next week, I'm challenging you this week. I'm challenging you to step forth as a leader and to come forth and say, you know what? I have an idea and I have a project that I would love for our spiritual community to become involved in, and I am going to lead it because you all have leadership capabilities in you. And you're going to maybe even come up and give an announcement. Don't worry, you don't have to if you don't want to, but it'd be great. I'll challenge you again to that. And to get people on board with what it is that you're passionate about. But the thing that we have to have is leaders. We have to have people step up and say, yes, I will lead that. So, yes? Yes. Okay, I won't look so that, yeah. Oh, look, we've got one back there with a hand up.
No, I just want to say in addition to that, I've worked with Rare Breed. These kids are outside. There's 700 of them in Greene County alone that go through that program. The heat, the little hand warmer.
Oh, right, hand warmers. Yeah. So this is hearts wide open, you guys. This is hearts wide open, and this is moving beyond our own little worlds and recognizing that there is a lot of suffering out here, and we can make a difference. And we have to make a difference. There's no more sitting back. There's no more excuses. We're going to make a difference. I know I talked last week about Hope Connection, and that this is a day that people have signed up to be with homeless people and help them to connect with various resources in our community. And I'm excited because I was actually, when I signed up, there were only 2 spots. And so I got one of those spots, and I'm going to be doing that this Wednesday. And that makes me step out of my comfort zone. I'm challenging myself because I want to get into the trenches, and I want to make a difference. And so I hope that you all will want to get in the trenches too and start making a difference in our community. I want to share with you in closing that Stephanie Barton, who came, and she was our medium that came, and she's just the essence of love. But she connected with me to check in with me, and I said, just share your thoughts with me. And so she said, I have gleaned a great deal of understanding and insight after this election. Because of this, I feel a tremendous amount of peace. First, as awakened ones, the souls that we are, we have the undeniable and awe-inspiring opportunity to do our work. We have no illusion of a system that will save us. We must choose love continuously. We must look at one another with compassion. We must be steadfast in our determination to be spirit in the world. After the election, I made a point to look everyone I met at the store, the library, the gas station, on the street, with the eyes and the mind of the Christ. That is the vision that I hold on to. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to ask you if you will stand with me and stand as stand as what we know the solution is in this world. And that is to be there for each other, and to be the presence of love, because love is the answer. And so I'm going to ask you, will you stand with me? You know, this week I've been all over the place and how to talk about today, because I have so many friends and my spiritual family who are really hurting. But what I know beyond a shadow of a doubt is that as we come together and as we really start to see each other, start to care about each other, we're going to change the world. We're going to change the world. So thank you. Thank you. God is in charge, and this I know. And namaste. Namaste.